You're not lazy. You're just smart enough to know that most of what people call success is an exhausting race with no finish line. What if your so-called laziness isn't a flaw, but a signal? A signal that you were never meant to burn, out for things that don't matter. Naval Ravikant once said, "Escape competition through authenticity." So today we're not going to talk about working harder. We're going to show you a completely different path, a system that turns ambition and laziness into the ultimate formula for success. Because if you've ever felt overwhelmed, stuck, or secretly unmotivated, this video might just change the way you look at your entire life. So stay with me, especially through the next few minutes, because what you're about to hear could help you design a life that actually works for you. Instead of draining you, if you're ambitious but lazy, you're not broken. You might just be brilliant. That tension you feel between wanting more out of life but not wanting to run yourself into the ground to get it isn't a flaw. It's a signal that you were never meant to follow the path of endless hustle, exhaustion, and shallow wins. See, we've been taught to glorify effort, to idolize burnout, to wear busyness like a badge of honor. But what if the ones who truly win are the ones who refuse to play that game? Naval Ravikant, one of the clearest thinkers of our time, believes that success isn't about working harder, it's about working right, about focusing energy, not time, about building systems, not chasing goals. And if you're someone who's constantly overwhelmed yet deeply driven, you might already be wired for the kind of success that doesn't require sacrificing your life to achieve it. This video is not about motivational hype or hustle culture mantras. It's a shift, a new lens, a blueprint for the ambitious soul who's tired of being tired. We're going to explore how to use strategic laziness as leverage, how to think like Naval, how to structure your time, your mind, and your environment to produce unreasonable results with minimal stress. Because the truth is, you don't need more energy, you just need fewer leaks. And maybe, just maybe, you're not lazy at all. You're just done wasting energy on things that don't matter. Most people spend their lives optimizing the wrong things. They check off endless tasks, reply to every email, tweak every tiny detail, and wonder why nothing truly moves forward. But Naval Ravikant sees the world through a sharper lens. He believes most human effort is wasted, not because we're lazy, but because we're unfocused, because we haven't learned to separate motion from impact. And that's where the 80-20 principle changes everything. Think about this. If only 20% of what you do produces 80% of your results, then most of your day is spent running on a treadmill, burning energy but going nowhere. And the cost isn't just wasted time. It's stolen clarity, stolen creativity, stolen momentum. That's why the ambitious but overwhelmed person feels stuck. It's not because they aren't working, it's because they're doing too much of the wrong work. And the real tragedy: most people never stop long enough to notice. They confuse action with progress, motion with momentum, and being busy with being effective. But activity without intention is just noise. And noise steals your life. Naval doesn't wake up asking, "What do I need to do today?" He asks, "What matters so much that everything else becomes optional?" That's the power of 80-20. It's not just a productivity tactic. It's a life filter. It forces you to look at your calendar, your habits, your to-do list, and burn it all to the ground if it doesn't move the needle. You could spend 10 hours answering low-priority messages, or you could spend 1 hour building a system that handles them for you. One creates busy work, the other creates freedom. The lazy genius knows this instinctively. They're not avoiding work, they're avoiding waste. Look back at your last month, be honest. Which 2 or 3 things actually created meaningful results? A conversation that opened a new door, a piece of content that grew your audience, a small project that led to unexpected revenue. That's your 20%. Everything else? That's background noise wearing a productivity costume. And here's the deeper truth. The 80-20 rule is fractal, which means inside your most impactful 20%, there's another 20% that produces even more. It's not about doing less for the sake of doing less. It's about going deeper into what already works and letting go of what never truly did. The Modern world rewards clarity over effort. A single, well-placed action can create ripple effects for years, while scattered effort disappears the moment you stop pushing. That's why Naval talks so often about leverage. Leverage isn't about getting help. It's about choosing work that compounds. Code is leverage, media is leverage, capital is leverage. But the foundation of all of it is focus. And focus isn't just about attention, it's about subtraction. It's about being brave enough to say no to 80% of what you're doing, even if it looks productive, even if it makes you feel useful. Because usefulness without direction is just another distraction. There's something quietly revolutionary about looking at your life and asking, what if I stopped? What if you stopped attending every meeting that could have been an email? What if you stopped chasing inbox zero and started chasing impact instead? What if you stopped doing 5 things halfway and did one thing deeply, consistently, and with leverage? This isn't hypothetical, it's math. The more you dilute your effort, the less it matters. But when you take the few things that move the needle and double down, results accelerate, time expands, energy returns, and success begins to look a lot less like burnout and a lot more like breathing. That's the beauty of being ambitious and lazy. You see the madness for what it is. You're willing to look past the grind culture and ask the uncomfortable questions. You're not trying to win the game of doing more. You're trying to change the game entirely. And the first step is always the same. Identify your 20%. Audit your time, your projects, your commitments. Ask, what's actually working? What actually brings results, peace, joy, or all three? Circle those things. Then everything else becomes negotiable. Because once you taste the freedom that comes from focused leverage, you'll never go back. You'll realize that the goal was never to do more. It was to do what matters, and to do it so well, so deliberately, and so efficiently that life finally begins to feel like it's working with you instead of against you. In the end, it's not about discipline. It's about design. You don't need to force yourself to be productive. You need to build a life where the essential things are so obvious, so compelling, that doing them becomes inevitable. So stop glorifying effort for its own sake. Stop idolizing busyness. Start respecting your energy as the finite, precious fuel that it is, and use it only where it matters most. That's the 80-20 mindset. That's Naval's path. And if you walk it, you'll do less, create more, and live lighter than ever before. Every day you wake up with a limited amount of mental energy, not just for doing things, but for deciding what to do. And yet most people burn half of it before breakfast. They open their phone, scroll through a dozen messages, choose from dozens of outfits, agonize over small plans, bounce between tabs, and wonder why they already feel tired before the real work even begins. The truth is, decision-making is expensive, not in dollars, but in willpower. And once that currency runs out, even the smallest task starts to feel impossible. Naval Ravikant doesn't just manage decisions, he designs them out of his life. Because he knows that freedom isn't just about having more choices, it's about not needing to make them. The fewer decisions you make in a day, the more energy you preserve for what truly matters. That's not laziness, that's intelligence. That's the strategy of someone who understands that clarity is a form of wealth and that cluttered thinking is the enemy of great work. You don't need more motivation. You need fewer choices. You need defaults, routines, templates, frameworks. Because structure isn't the opposite of freedom, it's what creates it. When you automate the trivial, you unlock space for the meaningful. When you eliminate friction from the start of your day, you create momentum that carries you through it. Most people think high performers are just more disciplined. They think greatness is a product of raw effort, of waking up with fire every single day. But Naval would argue that what we call discipline is just a well-designed system, one that removes unnecessary decisions and reduces the chance of failure. It's not about forcing yourself to do hard things. It's about making the right thing the easiest thing to do. Think about how many decisions you make that don't actually matter. What to wear, what to eat, when to start, where to sit, what to click next. Each of these seems harmless, but together they eat away at your most precious resource, attention. And once attention is gone, there's no flow, no focus, no progress, just fatigue. The ambitious but lazy person knows this, and instead of wasting energy on the dozens of micro-decisions that don't matter, they make one smart decision once, and let it guide their days indefinitely. They choose one morning routine, one daily schedule, one core system for how to start their work, how to close their day, how to reset when they're stuck. And that single choice becomes a mental autopilot, freeing up bandwidth for thinking deeply, acting decisively, and creating consistently. Decision minimization isn't about being rigid, it's about being intentional, it's about deciding. Now, so you don't have to decide again later, when you're tired, stressed, or overwhelmed, because it's in those moments of mental depletion that we make our worst choices. We say yes to things we don't believe in. We waste time on distractions. We give our energy to the loudest demand, not the most important one. This is where the magic of defaults comes in. A default is a pre-chosen path, a pre-decided rule that protects your time and mental energy. For example, you don't check your phone until after your morning routine. You only schedule meetings after lunch. You always batch similar tasks into one block. These aren't hacks, they're commitments. Commitments that reduce noise, eliminate ambiguity, and restore the one thing that's always in short supply, clarity, and it goes deeper. Because when you reduce decision fatigue in your outer world, your inner world changes too. You become calmer. You stop questioning yourself so much. You stop negotiating with resistance. You simply move, act, flow. And that internal ease starts to show up in everything you touch. Your work sharpens. Your relationships deepen. Your presence becomes undeniable. Naval once said, "If you want to be truly effective, you need to build a life where the hard choices are made ahead of time." This means reducing uncertainty, designing your defaults, protecting your mornings, creating containers for creativity instead of hoping for spontaneous bursts. Because success isn't random. It's not about working harder than everyone else. It's about making fewer, smarter choices and executing them consistently. Let's take a practical example. Most people open their laptop and ask, "What should I work on today?" That one question derails their entire morning. They scroll, they fidget, they jump between tasks. The ambitious but lazy individual, they've already decided the night before. When they sit down, they know what matters most, and that decision is already done. No hesitation, no friction, just flow. And that's where we start to see the real power of this philosophy. It's not about eliminating decisions for the sake of being efficient. It's about creating space for what truly matters. Because when your mental energy is preserved, you don't just get more done, you think better. You solve deeper problems. You create with clarity instead of chasing urgency. The people who seem the most focused, the most creative, the most consistent, they're not superhuman. They've just optimized their lives around energy, not time. They don't try to make 100 decisions every day. They've made a few powerful ones that eliminate the rest. And this is what allows them to stay consistent without burning out, to be ambitious without being chaotic, to succeed without constantly fighting themselves. In the end, it's not about how much you can push. It's about how well you can remove friction. And when your life is designed to support your energy, instead of draining it, everything changes. You stop reacting and start choosing. You stop surviving and start creating. You stop chasing and start attracting. That's the real secret behind decision minimization. Not just doing less, but thinking less about what doesn't matter. So your mind can finally rest, focus, and do the work that truly moves your life forward. And if this resonates with you, if you're ready to stop feeling scattered and start feeling clear, then consider subscribing. Because this space is for people like you. People who want to do less, but live more. People who are ambitious, enough to dream big, and wise enough to do it the smart way. You think you need more willpower, but what you really need is less friction. Because no matter how strong your intentions are, your environment will always win. Naval Ravikant understands this better than most. He's not interested in discipline. He's interested in design, the kind of design that makes the right behavior the automatic behavior. and turns effort into momentum. Your environment is not neutral. It nudges you constantly. Toward distraction, toward overthinking, toward resistance. That phone on your desk, it's not harmless. It's a portal to 10,000 tiny decisions and a million invisible interruptions. That cluttered workspace, it's not just messy. It's chaotic energy that seeps into your mind, making every decision feel heavier. The people around you who treat your time casually, they're shaping your identity more than your goals ever will. We like to think we are rational creatures, making conscious decisions with intention, but most of what we do isn't the result of choice. It's the result of proximity. You do what's easy, what's visible, what's reachable. That's not weakness, that's how the human brain works. And the ambitious but lazy person? They use that to their advantage. They know they'll eat what's in front of them. So they don't fight cravings, they stock the fridge with clarity. They know they'll reach for the nearest distraction, so they build environments where the distractions are hidden and the focus tools are visible. They know they'll feel overwhelmed if their space feels chaotic, so they simplify, organize, and eliminate visual noise. They don't wait for motivation. They make sure motivation isn't needed in the first place. Imagine walking into a room where every single item reinforces your identity, the kind of person you want to be. A space where deep work is natural, not forced. Where your phone isn't a siren song because it's out of sight. Where your to-do list isn't scattered across apps and notebooks, but structured in one clear system that lives where you can see it every time you sit down. That's not a fantasy, that's design, that's power. Because the truth is, we don't rise to the level of our goals, we fall to the level of our systems. And the system starts with the environment you create. Every object, every tab, every notification, it's either pulling you toward clarity or away from it. The people in your life, the conversations you allow, the boundaries you set or fail to set, they're shaping your trajectory far more than your daily intentions ever could. Naval doesn't obsess over optimizing himself. He optimizes what surrounds him. Because the smart person knows they will always be human, fallible, distracted, prone to mood. But instead of fighting that, they build safeguards around it. They don't rely on grit. They rely on architecture. You don't need to be stronger than your distractions. You just need to be smarter than them. Put your phone in another room when you work. Install website blockers that prevent digital wandering. Make your calendar your compass so that you never again sit down and ask, "What should I do now?" Because every time you hesitate, distraction wins. Every time you guess, you leak energy. Every time you negotiate with your worst habits, you lose the fight before it begins. Environment design is how you win without fighting. It's how you align your surroundings with your values, not your cravings. Because the hardest part of doing meaningful work isn't the work itself. It's getting yourself to start. And nothing kills momentum faster than an environment filled with friction. The ambitious but lazy person knows this. That's why they simplify. That's why they design workflows that start themselves. That's why they turn routines into rituals. So, the first step is always automatic. It's why their homes are organized, their apps are curated, and their time is protected like a sacred resource. Not because they're obsessed with control, but because they understand the cost of chaos. Think about the last time you made real progress. The last time you lost yourself in flow. The last time you ended the day proud, not for how much you did, but for how focused you felt. Was it because you powered through distractions with willpower, or because the path was clear, the space was quiet, and your energy didn't get drained before it could be used? Clarity is contagious, and when your environment reflects clarity, your mind begins to mirror it. You stop scrolling just to feel busy. You stop multitasking just to feel useful. You begin to move differently, deliberately. You begin to feel the quiet power of choosing less but doing it better. Naval lives by a principle: play long-term games with long-term people. But that game isn't only about relationships, it's about systems, environments, routines. And the person who masters their environment isn't the one who has everything, but the one who removes everything that doesn't matter. You want to feel lighter? Clean your space. You want to feel focused? Declutter your digital life. You want to feel present? Get rid of the noise, physical, mental, and emotional. That's not aesthetic minimalism, that's neurological optimization. And here's what happens when you design your environment for clarity. You stop needing motivation. You stop waiting for the right moment. You stop feeling behind because you're no longer playing a game of resistance. You're moving with the current you created. Your environment is a mirror of your priorities. If it feels noisy, chaotic, and unfocused, it's time to stop trying harder and start designing smarter. Because the most effective people aren't stronger, faster, or smarter than the rest. They just don't rely on willpower, they rely on design. And if this idea speaks to you, if you're tired of fighting yourself every day and ready to finally make the right choice feel easy, then you're exactly where you need to be. Consider subscribing, because this channel is for people who want to do more by designing better. For people who know that success isn't about hustle, it's about systems, and that the path to clarity begins right where you are. Most people walk through life half awake, not because they want to, but because the systems around them were never built for clarity. They wake up to noise, they navigate chaos, they chase achievement without ever asking if the ladder they're climbing is even leaning on the right wall. But if you've watched this far, something in you already knows. There has to be another way. There is. And it starts with redefining what it means to be ambitious. Not as someone who sacrifices every ounce of peace just to achieve more, but as someone who questions the noise, trims the excess, and builds a life that works for them, not against them. This is the philosophy Naval Ravikant lives by. Not a life of hustle, but of leverage. Not a life of obligation, but of clarity. Not days crammed with distractions, but hours carved with intention. And maybe that's the life you've been craving too, because somewhere deep inside you're tired. Not just physically. Soul tired. Tired of confusing activity with progress. Tired of equating exhaustion with success. Tired of doing everything, yet feeling like none of it really matters. You don't want more hustle, you want peace, alignment, flow, and guess what? That doesn't come from doing more. It comes from removing what was never meant to be yours in the first place. It comes from choosing fewer, better things and doing them well. It comes from designing a day that feels good to live, not just to measure, and yes, it comes from allowing your so-called laziness to guide you, not toward avoidance, but toward precision. That's the quiet revolution we're building here. A movement not for the loudest achievers, but for the clearest thinkers, for the ones who'd rather build systems that sustain them than burn out, chasing goals that don't. So if this message resonates with you, if you're ready to stop drowning in shoulds, if you're done performing success for others and finally ready to design it for yourself, then make this moment your turning point. Not by doing something drastic, but by starting with one tiny, intentional shift. Maybe that means creating a simple rule, like no phone before 10 a.m. Maybe it means deleting one app that no longer serves you. Maybe it's giving yourself permission to slow down. And listen, because sometimes listening to what feels right is the most productive thing you can do. And if you want support for that kind of life, if you want more videos like this, more ideas that cut through the noise and remind you of who you actually are underneath the distractions, then you're in the right place. This isn't just a channel, it's a philosophy, a rhythm, a return, a space for the ambitious but thoughtful, the lazy but strategic, the tired but ready to build something better. We don't do hype here, we do clarity, and clarity changes everything. So here's your invitation. Subscribe not because you should, but because something inside you knows that these ideas matter. Share this with someone who's silently carrying too much and needs permission to put something down. And most of all, choose one small system to implement today. Not tomorrow, not Monday. Today. Because the gap between who you are and who you want to be, it's not discipline, it's design. And now so you know how to begin. Welcome to your new rhythm. Welcome to your clarity. Welcome home.